For this session, I wrote 103 words. That segment took me about 2 hours to write. Some days I knock out my session in less than half an hour, and some days it takes 2 to 3. Today's session was an evening session. I didn't have the time this morning or this afternoon to get it done. It's been very, very busy. And I think part of why it took me so long to get out the words tonight was just getting to the right headspace, but also just decluttering from all of the activity that's been ongoing in my life. It was hard to get in the zone today. I'm definitely brain fried, but I am really happy with where I left off, and I am glad that I was able to push it a little bit tonight and to even have this extra window to really spend time in my manuscript. Some macaroni cheese. For this session, I wrote 142 words, and my week's total word count is 777 words. I am still recovering from a long slog with a sinus cold, so I'm gonna keep this video short and sweet. Sinus colds are my kryptonite. I feel like it is near impossible to do any of the activities that I enjoy, such as, or namely, reading and writing. It is so hard to think with all this congestion in my head, but moving along, I wanted to talk a little bit about the other things I do as a writer that I don't really talk about or share. The most obvious one is journaling, and with this journal, I'm actually almost through with it. So the journaling though that I do isn't about necessarily talking about my life and things that I've done. It's more of a collection of ideas, of fragments of thoughts, of things that I'm experimenting with. This journal in particular is stream of consciousness. I literally just write whatever comes to mind. I don't even date this journal, but I also do keep other journals. I keep a digital journal on my laptop. I keep one on my phone. And so even though on a day-to-day basis, I'm writing very little for my manuscript, I'm actually writing quite a lot of experimental thoughts in other places. So my word count for my current primary manuscript, because I am working on 2. One, my primary one, I write in every single day, though I write intuitively, and then my second manuscript is my really purely pick up when I feel type manuscript. So my word count for my primary manuscript, though it can range from 40 to 100 plus words, my overall word count per day is probably in the 3,000 to 4,000 range. If I'm having a bad day though, it might be somewhere closer to like 2,000. From what I've seen in the writing world, it seems that a lot of people put their experimental ideas into their first drafts, and I have found that that doesn't work for me. People also utilize 0 drafts, and that's even more of a sketch than the first draft. And psychologically, I have found that that also doesn't work well for me. So long as I am aware that a draft is moving me toward my manuscript, there is this immense block where I can't really write. So I have found that I need a complete separation of my drafting from my actual manuscript. So all of these thoughts I collect, they have nothing to do with my manuscript, nothing directly to do with my manuscript. Sometimes there might be an idea that I might run off with my manuscript, but this is entirely a separate thing. However, I do find that subconsciously having this allows me to write better for my manuscript. It kind of primes my brain in a way to be more fluid with my ideas. Journaling is the warm-up, it is the cool down, it is the recovery of writing, in my opinion. Moving along, I want to talk about the new books in my collection. First off, we have Orientalism by Edward Said. Next up, The Archaeology of Knowledge by Michael Foucault. And then I finally figured out which Les Mis translation I wanted, and I picked up Victor Hugo's Les Mis, translated by Norman Denny. I read the Signet Classic version of Les Mis, I forget who the translator is for that one, in high school, and I feel like it's time in my adulthood now to revisit it outside of a school setting, just on my own time. Next up, I picked up The Passion by Jeanette Winterson, and it is a surrealist work. And then lastly, I didn't expect to be as into this as I actually am, because it's also a little bit dark, but it is very, very good. It is Half-Light, Collected Poems by Frank Bedard. It's a pretty big collection. Books I have been focusing on this month to finish, though I am in no rush or hurry to get them all read by the end of the month. We have Either Or by Elif Batuman, and I am almost finished with it. Maybe I'm about almost 2/3 of the way through, and I have been really, really enjoying this. Definitely, in my opinion, this is better than her first book, The Idiot. I think the insights in this book are so much more profound than in The Idiot, and very, very interesting. I have never heard of arranged marriage presented in a positive light, and there's one segment in here that captures that, and I was astonished. Next up, The Possessed by Dostoevsky, and for this one, I am about 2/3 the way through. There's a large index at the end, and I have been absolutely loving this book. For me, it ranks second to The Brothers Karamazov, and then The Idiot is third. I have yet to read Crime and Punishment, however, so we'll see how my rankings change thereafter. And lastly, this is a book that I'm actually tandem reading with my husband. It is Transit by Rachel Cusk, and it is my first Rachel Cusk book. I'm actually 1/3 of the way through, and my husband is almost done with this book. My husband is the one who actually picked up this book. He's the one who chose it, and he chose it for the title and then the praying mantis on the cover. We are totally reading this out of order, but I don't mind at all. And it's funny because I have thought about reading a Rachel Cusk book for a while, but when I was at the library one time and I picked up Outline and then I flipped into the pages and I saw the font, my God, I was horrified. I am very particular with my fonts. I have a very specific aesthetic that I prefer for typography, and it took me a while to get past I don't even know what font this is, of this book, but that aside, it is a very, very insightful read. That is it for this vlog. I'm going to get to my writing session later today, and then once I have that done, I will add the snippet at the end. For this session, I wrote 117 words.